In this lecture, I'm going to show you a general overview of Scribus and how to get started using Scribus. We're going to produce a menu for an Italian restaurant, or the first page of a menu for an Italian restaurant that is going to look like this. So we will use Scribus and learn some of the basic tools to produce a very simple menu. So to start, we launch Scribus, and when Scribus opens, the first thing we are going to want to do is to pick a single fold or single page. We've got our settings set up already to default to letter 8.5 inches by 11 inches in portrait mode. If that's not the case, then you want to adjust those before you create your document or your template. All right, then we also don't need any margins on this particular menu, so just change all of these numbers here to 0, all of your left, right, top, and bottom margin. Change them all to 0 and click OK. And a template will open, or a basic document will open for us to start working on. All right, the first thing we want to do is we want to create a gray background. For this menu, we're not going to worry about color. Obviously, in the future, when we get into more detail, you want to use color. But for now, we're going to keep everything simple, black and white. So what I want to do is I want to create a shape, rectangular shape. I can click on the shape icon, or I can just hit the letter S, and I will get the shape icon here. You can see it moving, the plus the um, arrow. I want to create it so it covers the entire background page. So I do that. I scroll down to the bottom, and we don't worry about it exactly. We're going to be adjusting this later. If you haven't clicked somewhere else on your screen, your new rectangle is still selected. So, and you can see that by the fact that it's outlined in red and it has red dots in the corner. All right, so what we want to do right now is we want to go to Windows and Property. You see now you can also get to Properties by hitting the Function 2 button. For now, we'll go this way, and up pops a menu. We want this particular background to uh, to cover the entire grid. So we want to set the width to 8.5 inches, and we want to set the height to 11 inches. And we also want to set the X and Y positions to 0. And that'll become more obvious why we do that in future lessons. All right, now we've got the shape that covers the entire grid. We want to give it a name, so we're going to call it background. And then we want to go to the colors palette here, and we want to make this particular background gray. Now, if you scroll through the colors here, you'll see there is no gray. What we want to do is select black and then change the shade. So you notice as I decrease the percentage, the shade gets lighter and lighter. So let's do a 20% gray background. And that now gives us a background for our menu. Now, to make sure that our background is not changed accidentally, we want to go back to the XYZ tab, and we want to click on the lock button. All right, now that the background is created, we can close this properties window, and we want to insert a photo. We want to insert the photo of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So what we need to do is click on the Insert Image Frame, which we can do from this box, which we can do from this Insert menu here, or what we can do by typing in a single I. All right, and we want to draw it starting in the corner, and we want it to be about that size. We can adjust it later. And then we right click, and if you downloaded all the files that I included in the exercise, you can go to the directory and find your photo, click on it, click on OK, and now the photo will appear in your page. But you'll say, well, wait a minute, that's not a photo, it's all black. So what you want to do is right click again and click on adjust frame to image, adjust image to frame. Click on that, and now your frame, your image, the entire image will appear in the box that you created. Now you see the box is too big. So what you can just do is on the button on the far right, when you hover over it, you'll see the arrows, and just move the arrow till it includes the entire picture. And that's all you need to do to insert a picture into Scribus. Now the rest of what we're going to be doing here is working with text. So we have this icon here, insert text frame. So I want to click on that, and I will get a text frame that I can insert into my text. I want it to align pretty much with the photo, but I want to leave a little blank here because you'll see why in a minute when I go to insert the text. All right, now to insert text, I can just double click and you can see the prompt starts here. So the name of the pizzeria is Papa Peppino's Pizzeria. So obviously if we left it like that, it wouldn't look very good. So we want to change the font. And I've chosen a font that I liked for this particular thing was a Romanesque looking font. It looks a little bit Italian, ancient Rome. So that font can be found by once again going to Windows Properties, and then we click on Text, and we look for the font we want, and that font that I chosen for this exercise is Casteller. All right, so I click on that, and then obviously this size is too small. I want to make this go up to as big as can fit on this, which is going to be about 36 points. See, it went off a little bit, and that's why before I said we want to list some extra room here. So let's just go down to 35, and that fits nicely then. All right, now we can go back to this box, and we can type in some more text. Now let's go down a line, and let's put in the address 123 Main Street, Scott Depot, West Virginia. The phone number 304-555-5555, and the website www.pepinoswestvirginia.com. All right, now we could just stop there with the address information, but this is something you're going to want to play with a little bit once you start doing some real design work here. I think the font size is okay, but what we need is to have a little bit more excitement here. Let's right justify it. And let's say, oh, I think this would look better at the bottom of the box. All right. Now, you see why I left this extra space here, because I didn't want the address and so on going all the way out to the margin. So when we print this, there's going to be a little bit space between here and the margin. All right, so that's all we need to do for the text, the proportion. Perhaps if you want, I think I did this in my original. I can click on this again, and I can insert a blank line here. So this is offset a little bit from the top margin. And there we have our heading. So the next thing we want to do is insert the text box for the slogan. So again, I put in a text box here. If I want, I can move it down a little bit just by clicking on it. So it leaves a little space here, but I'm going to center it anyway. So let's do that. Double click and we'll type in the slogan. You've had the rest. Now try the best. All right. The font's fine for me, I think, but let's go back to properties. And then for the text, we want to make it larger, obviously. So let's bring it up to, say, 2030 maybe. Something that fits pretty much close in the box. Now, we also, I think for this, would be better to be centered. And let's add a little style here. So if we click on style settings, or you could just go here and click on italics. And then we can close the properties, and you can see obviously this doesn't look particularly good here, but if I hit the enter key, I can get it to center here on the text box, both vertically and horizontally. And now I've got my slogan. Now, the next thing we want to do is insert the text boxes that we're going to use for the menu parts. So let's put in two text boxes here that we want to be approximately the same size. I can show you in a future lecture, I'll show you how to do this without alignment, without doing it manually. But for now, let's just do it manually. All right, so I've made a box. It's still highlighted. I can copy it. Sorry, I went too far. All right, I can copy it here. Let's just do a copy or Control C. And I've got a duplicate box now of the same size. So you can see now that once I've done that, these boxes should be a little bit bigger. Actually, I've moved both of them. All right, so it's not, when I'm copying both, they're both moving. So scrap that. Let's just make another one. All right, so we have insert text box, and actually this works out better anyway. All right, so we've got that. And now I want to insert some text. So I click on this and I want to insert pizza. And over here is pasta. Now again, we want to make these a little larger. So let's make an extra space here. Before line in front of each. Let's get them to font size 24. Remember, Windows property. Let's go to text and make this about font size 24. And this one also 24. And then we should also center them so that we can use them as headings. So we've got them both centered now. Now the other thing I want to do to see what I was doing in my other in my final version, I want to put in a line that just cuts the headings off from the other part of the menu. And then let's try the copy again. All right, that worked, I think. Yes. All right, so we've got a heading now. Now, what I want to do is one final step is let's put in 4 columns of text that are roughly going to be about the same size. So I do a copy and then a paste. And let's see if the copy paste worked this time. Yes, it did. Okay, I was probably not doing the paste before. And then paste, we can bring a third one over here and another paste, and we can bring the fourth one over here. So these columns are a little bit too big, so let's shrink them a little bit. And as I said, we'll learn how to do alignment better, but for now, don't worry about it. We're just trying to learn the techniques here. So I will move these a little further apart. More importantly, I want this away from the margin. All right, so that's pretty much, we've got 4 columns now. And as you know, the food's going to go in one column, the price in the other. Now, you could go in and type all this stuff manually, but one of the features of Scribus is that I've already included this in a Word document. So all I need to do is the column, click Get Text. I want to right click on the mouse, Get Text, and find my file. So here's pizzas, and I click OK. And then here are the prices. So again, Get Text, click OK. Then here, right click Pastas, and then here, right click Pasta Prices. All right, so I've got my text already imported from another source. The only other thing I need to do now is to go back to my Windows properties, and let's make this a little nicer here. So how do we do that? We click on the text bar, and this line spacing, we want to do the line spacing so that we've got it, let's say 24 again. And then do that just for everyone. 24, 24, and 24. That was 25, 27, 24. All right, oh, I know what happened there. Okay, so look, everything's lined perfectly here. Something went wrong here. And what you can see is that this line went over. So we need to make this column a little bit larger so it fits. And now everything's perfect. We've got our pastas aligned with our prices. Now, one last thing we want to do to make it look like the original that I showed you is that these were on the right margin. So again, while we're in text, what we want to do is we just want to click on the right margin align. We do that for both, and we've got our menu. So the last thing that we need to do for this, close the properties box. Remember, Scribus is not a document, it's a page layout. So to create your document, and you may want to save your project too, but to create your document, you have to export it. So we go to export and save as a PDF file, and then you want to do your save. And then the PDF file will be created that looks like this here. And that's a basic overview of how to use Scribus.